guys to Oresia Tv, online premier television in East Africa. Today we have a very nice panel with us here. We have Jose and then we have Frank. Today we are going to talk about very interesting topic. Basically, they will at least open the floor so that we don't have that tension. Guys, we need this to be a very interesting session that all of us, I know you're going to learn at the end of it all. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you press that button and then follow our conversation on Oresia TV on YouTube. Yes. Welcome.
All right.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm ready. Well, now today we're going to talk about aviation industry. Aviation industry. I know everyone has an idea of what aviation industry is all about. So today we have our guest today, and we are going to talk about this topic in detail. So maybe if we can start with Frank.
All right. Thank you very much, Moses. I think for me, the first thing I'll do is just to give you a brief introduction. My name is Frank Koech, currently a technical planning engineer in Kenya Airways, and I've been working with Moses here in a project. That's why probably he picked on me. And I don't know why he picked my fellow guest.
I don't know either. That's why I'm as surprised as you are. But hopefully people will appreciate the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm Jose. I'm here at Kenya Airways doing a project as well for a client. I'm an aerospace engineer and general aviation consultant. So I think Moses' idea for today's conversation was to just briefly talk about the industry for everybody that's not 100% familiar with it, and then it's got a few topics which I think are really interesting, so we can get started with those.
Yeah, sure. So today, maybe before we start, if we could understand a brief of what aviation industry is all about. Maybe Jose, if you could start us off.
All right, where to start? Again, complicated thing. Aviation, transport of goods and services and people and all sorts of stuff by air. So we can talk about aviation from an airline point of view, like obviously Kenya Airways. We can talk about aviation from a private aviation point of view, business jets and stuff like that. We can talk about aviation from a cargo point of view. We can talk about aviation from a commuting helicopter point of view. So yeah, aviation is a world in itself. So lots of different things.
Wow. That is really amazing. Frank?
Maybe one thing that Joseph maybe has just forgotten to say is we can also view aviation from a maintenance point of view, because aviation is also an opportunity for them from aircraft maintenance, coming from an engineering perspective as well. So we have the private, we have the passenger, we have the cargo, and we have the maintenance as well.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. That is really great. I know aviation is more than that. You can't exhaust what aviation is all about. Is that true?
True.
Yeah, cool. So maybe if we could go and see aviation in the aspect of which the contribution is making to the economy of a country. What would you say? What is the profit margin? What is the contribution basically to the economy of a country? Aviation at large.
Ooh, that's a difficult question. I suppose first it depends a little bit on the country. So some countries' contribution to aviation might be tourism, to bring in tourism. Other countries it might be because it allows business or more, that it allows business to move backwards and forwards, professionals, goods, whatever. Okay. It could be because it creates connectivity between that country for friends and relatives to come and visit. So that's a market as well. It can be so much. Obviously, we have the direct benefit, which is if an airline is making a profit and all of the money it's earning is coming to that country, the salaries of the people who work in that airline are being paid for that country. There's a lot of money that gets put back into the economy when you have an airline based in your area, right? Yeah.
Yep. I think from what Jose has just said, also in terms of how the aviation contributes to the economy of a country, in terms of the salary, in terms of bringing in tourists. I think one thing that it might be different from where Jose comes from would be if you look at a country like Kenya and you view an aviation industry, for example, Kenya Airways, an aviation company that is, you look at it, when Kenya Airways flies, how many cups of tea are served in every flight that Kenya Airways does? When you look back at where the cup of tea comes from, how many farmers has that one flight sustained back in the village at home. When you look at the food they serve, let's say it's broccoli, for example, it's definitely supporting a farmer back in a local village, let's say Kiambu or somewhere within Kenya. So aviation has a very big impact in our society, not only from the passenger and tourist and maybe shipping stuff in and out of the country, but also supporting the local entrepreneurs within. Yep.
And also a flagship of the country, right? If I'm flying Kenya Airways and I get given a Kenyan tea, there's marketing there, right? Oh, this tea is really great. Where's this tea from? Oh, it's Kenyan tea, right? So in a lot of things, if you're in Heathrow and you see a Kenya Airways Dreamliner landing, oh, Kenya, great. So there's that, maybe less easy value to account, but it's an added value nonetheless.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, I know how much the aviation industry is bringing a lot of benefits to the country. I know it has too many risks, and that is evident in the media. Yeah, and anyone who could thought about aviation, you could always but see the risks, because once you are up there, anything can happen. Well, what do you think are the risks in the aviation? Maybe common ones. I know there are many, but yeah, maybe those ones that you feel they are.
Let me take this one from Josiah.
No, definitely. You're the expert.
It's not that I know a lot of risk about aviation, but when you look at aviation in itself, one of the key elements of aviation is definitely safety. Okay. Because you don't want to run into a risk of an aircraft that has had a crash, because the fatalities are way too many. Yeah. So safety is a key element within the aviation industry. So the main thing here would be, how do we control these risks? How do we mitigate these risks? So definitely one of the key things of, maybe if you want to see the kind of risks that are within aviation, definitely number one, we would say human error, which is definitely a cost.
Yes, that is the biggest by far.
You see that? So human error is there. If we just go to, should you call it human error or human factors?
Human factors is our technical term, but I suppose for the general public, human error.
Yeah, human error.
It can happen.
So human error is a big one, and when you look at it, having machine failures can be a second one. So for me, it's only that I'm talking so much from an engineering perspective of aviation. So we can see human errors whereby I can forget to do something. I can definitely just be fatigued when I'm working. So the main thing is just for either a company or a working station whereby they're trying to limit those human errors by putting in processes that will limit that kind of thing. So, Jose, anything?
Definitely, I agree with you 100%. Human error is the biggest issue. Technology in aviation has developed a lot. Reliability has developed a lot. And nowadays, whenever you have an issue with technology, it's usually picked up on the ground. It has to, we do maintenance beforehand. There's all sorts of things that get done. Normally those get detected. It's the human that sits in the cockpit, that sits in the aircraft, that's all of the people that intervene, air traffic control, maintenance, whoever. There are so many people in this link. If one of them has a problem, it's really difficult to detect. And if they fail, which they obviously do, you need to mitigate that risk, right? But if this is what Frank was saying, the biggest issue is human performance, or lack of it in this case, when mistakes happen.
Wow. So that is really an amazing way of talking about risks in aviation. But however much there are too much human errors, we can say, however much there is system failure, for example, when you're operating a machine. Well, I know there are laid down rules, or there are laid down procedures that are usually laid down to mitigate those risks. So maybe if you could talk a few of how you mitigate risks in aviation, or how risks are usually handled in aviation.
Now we're going to look at this holistically, would you say? Okay. Number one, probably you can say training.
For sure, definitely, yes.
So how well have I trained you to perform the job that I've given you to perform? Because if you're not well conversant and well trained with anything that you're doing within the aviation industry, then probably your chances of doing or having the human error is high. Sure. What else can we put in? Processes,
Yes.
We can come up with processes.
Built-in safety nets.
Yep, putting in safety nets. Safety nets is more of, can we say, layers of safety, such that if something bypasses the first safety net of mitigation, will it bypass the second one and the third one? Probably not. So if we have like 5 safety nets, our chances of getting hold of the risk or the error to happen will be like 5 different stages. Our chances of capturing it is like five times. As much as they always say, it's called what laws? Whatever is bound to happen will definitely happen. Look at you guys now. You don't know.
Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, that's also one thing
Yeah.
we need to always
Yeah.
remember. But I think I've said training process. Anything else you have in mind?
I think a general attitude by the whoever's doing the job to be critical, to look for the errors, to look for improvement. What if they do something every day? Maybe they find another way to do it better, to do it safer. I think that kind of attitude is really good, and it definitely helps get a better system.
And the thing to add on one thing that Joseph said in terms of attitude, also you look at the attitude of a specific, should I say, industry or company where it works, such that we don't have a finger pointing. That if it's Joseph who has done a mistake or has done an error today, we should not be the first ones to point fingers at him. But the main thing is just what he has said, try to improve on it. So we'd like to go back and look what led for person X to do a certain error. Then we can try and look at all that, whatever happened, then we can try and mitigate it by probably putting in another safety net to help it not to happen.
True. And I'm just going by what you're saying. I think our industry is the only industry that I'm aware of where there's, for example, a show about this. You've seen Air Crash Investigation, where you can see how the process works. When something's gone wrong, in this case usually seriously wrong, there is a process to learn the lessons. And everybody or the people involved go through all the levels of actions that happened that led to that, come up with suggestions, come up with ways to get it done. I think it's a really, really good attitude. So the system itself builds more resilience, builds more capability to not have these catastrophic failures.
When we are talking about aviation in broad or the general aspect of aviation, we talked about maintenance, and in mitigation of risks, probably we usually do maintenance. Now that you talked about one of the risks that we usually encounter is the system failure. So how do you how often do you conduct a maintenance such that it doesn't come to the system aspect where we expect an abrupt, for example, failure of a machine and sort of stuff?
I don't want to sound more professional than just say I want to I will give you this opportunity.
I'm flying tomorrow. No, it's his area. Obviously, maintenance is what Frank does.
Okay.
Proactively, lots of things, right?
Yep.
Depends on the aircraft. The bigger aircraft has a different maintenance schedule than a small aircraft. You guys have the Dreamliner that has a certain interval. You have Embraer 190s. You have 737s. They all have a different schedule. But I think there are 3 main drivers behind maintenance. You have calendar, so every so often something is done. You have the number of hours the aircraft has flown, so every so many hours something's done. And you have the number of cycles, which is every time the airplane takes off and lands. Every so many cycles, something else gets done. So when you're counting these 3 factors, you can account for the maintenance that's done. You know for a fact every week somebody will do something.
Yeah.
Every 500 landings somebody will do something else. It's part of the maintenance program.
Okay.
And when this maintenance program is followed, all of these things happen automatically.
Yeah, and I think I agree with Jose more, especially when it comes to maintenance program. I always call the maintenance program as the Bible of maintenance.
Of course.
Because the maintenance program will give us the routine tasks that you're supposed to do on the aircraft. Then, if you do this task, your chances of running into risks of failure of components or failure of systems will be definitely low. So the maintenance program will definitely give you how often do you do something, how often do you supposed to, let's say, lubricate, inspect, how often are you supposed to change a component. But also we have another aspect that also comes about of the non-routine task, which a good example would be the ADs and SBs.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. When you put those ones into the pictures, would be like most of these tasks, which we call them airworthiness directives, they are definitely developed from an aspect of mitigating the risk.
Definitely.
Yeah. So if you put that, we have the routine whereby the maintenance program, we have it, and then we have the non-routine with an example of an airworthiness directive. Definitely, when you put them into one picture, they are all mitigating the risk, they are all lowering the chances of a component failure.
Cool. Welcome back. Okay.
It was a commercial break.
It was. We needed
Welcome
some time
back.
to come.
Yeah. So is that?
Yep.
Sure.
Welcome back, guys, to the conversation. This is Oresia TV. Hope you are continuing to enjoy our broad conversation. Today, I decided to take you in aviation, and I have engineers. I'm the only one. Cool. Now, we were talking about like how you mitigate risk, and you gave us a very profound way of how you usually do it through maintenance, and you talked about the service bulletins and the airworthiness directives that you usually use to mitigate in case there is any kind of defect that usually happens to an aeroplane. And that is what usually comes up, and you execute that, which is really wonderful. And aviation is really a very good industry. I'm coming to love it anyway, but for me, I usually do interviews. Cool. Now, I know a lot is happening in aviation, but in every kind of business, there always exists a gap. That is a niche in business. Do you think there is anything that hasn't been touched? Anything that you think it is supposed to be done that hasn't been done so far in aviation? So far, those airlines that you've been in and you've interacted with?
There's always things to do. I think for us now, we're coming up to a new age of technology.
Okay.
In terms of all of the new electric hybrid propulsions, in terms of all the more direct points of contact, small aircraft, vertical takeoff and landing, urban mobility. There's a whole new world of aviation that's opening up with the technology. I think that will be a very interesting leap. So technology's given us all sorts of things. Aircraft that will fly themselves, which goes into the discussion we were having just before in terms of human failure. Obviously, at the moment, machine is more reliable than human in most aviation tasks. So, you know, I think that's definitely something that we need to keep our eyes on, and is going to be the future.
I think for me, the kind of gap that I would say in aviation, I was trying to look at it from a passenger perspective. What gap do we have for the passenger perspective? I know it's not every class in our society that gets to fly, but probably the other chance that we can give, or we can view it as a gap, is if you have a country like Kenya, the more airports and airstrips are being availed, probably we can have more people flying. The other aspect also sometimes is the more that the airline lowers its cost of operations, definitely flying will be cheaper, definitely having more people to fly. And we were talking with Jose just before here, it was more of the opportunity that is within our African continent.
Okay.
You see, Africa is still developing in terms of business, in terms of, let's say, generally its well-being. And that is an opportunity for the aviation industry there. There's still so much room to develop in terms of aviation in Africa compared to Europe, America, or Asia. Because Africa's, when you look at the kind of resources that Africa has, and looking at it in terms of, we're still looking like industrialization is still coming to Africa.
Okay.
And the more we get that kind of development in Africa and economic growth, definitely aviation we can see a gap there, and aviation will be there to take a part of it.
True. Well, okay. How well is the data analysis in aviation? How well is data analysis in aviation? Do you think that one is really well covered in aviation?
Data analysis.
Yes.
Well, in some aspects, yes. For example, following from what Frank was mentioning in terms of maintenance, we know for a fact that there's a lot of the aircraft records a lot of information for us, which is processed on the ground, and everybody or engineers will go through that data and will try to pick what are the problems they can forecast in the future. So there's a trend. They look for trends, be it on engines, be it on whatever system is being reviewed. There's a use of what most people now call big data, huge amounts of data that get filtered with the use of algorithms and try to extrapolate for the future things that can happen and improve the reliability of the machine, improve the system, make it more resistant, make it cheaper. Obviously, if you can be more efficient, you can make more money. So yeah, I think in my point of view, big data from a maintenance side, but there's so much information that could be also gathered. So I think we need to take a step further. There are other industries that process big data way better than aviation. We should learn from other industries on how to process that and bring it to our advantage.
And I like the fact that Jose has said, like, the kind of technology or aircraft that we have in these times, it's more of the aircraft picks the data by itself, sends data by itself, and all that data gets analyzed, that kind of stuff. But also from a maintenance perspective, also as we are maintaining aircrafts, we end up picking data. For example, components that fail before time, components that fail before the expected time, or us overhauling a component before the expected duration. If we pick up this kind of data and put it together, it might look kind of a very small information from one aviation company. But when you look at it globally, if all, let's say, Boeing aircraft that are flying and they send information about their components failure, now you'll get to realize that Boeing will have so much data with regards to a single component that they can even tell when it's going to fail next, what they're supposed to do to mitigate its failure. So I think in terms of data collection, it's still there, but we still have room for improvement.
That is really, really nice. Now, I know much might have been done, a lot of which is really commendable, and we've seen a lot of like Kenya Airways doing its best. I've seen a lot of like Kenya Airlines, like those airlines so far I've interacted with, they really do a great job. But well, as far as they are doing a great job, as far as they are doing their best, I know there are always recommendations of what you think could be done a bit better. What do you think could be done in a different way, probably, which is it's being done and it's being done well, but maybe in a better way, for example. What do you think? Maybe if you start with Koech.
I'm not going to talk in terms of directly to Kenya Airways.
Yeah, sure.
But when I try and look at it, and just to make sure that I've understood your question, I'll put it this way. So the question is more of, you want to know how well we can do things to make them better, or how is it?
Okay, there are things that are being done, but maybe you have a few things you feel they could be done better in airlines, in aviation, that is in general.
In terms of things that can be done better, Joseph, let me give you this opportunity first. I think
all right.
I have a better idea than what
I think one of the biggest improvements that can be made, and we sort of touched on this a couple of minutes ago, is using technology.
Okay.
Using all the new things that are coming up, all the new, it could be a software, it could be a completely new fuel, so the range is complete. We have a drawing board that's empty, and we can basically go and pick from almost all of these places. So with new technologies, the processes can be more efficient, the processes can be faster, the processes can be cheaper. So I think definitely the next steps is to start implementing the use of big data to be a better forecaster of what's going to happen, to start using new technologies, electrical propulsion, hybrid propulsion, hydrogen propulsion, whatever. There's a lot of new things that I'm sure will be introduced over the next 10, 15 years that will bring the businesses, make them more efficient, make them more environmentally friendly, make a better experience for the flying public. So yeah, there's lots and lots of things that.
And I think another thing, apart from the technology that Joseph has touched on, I'll try and look at it from the skill aspect and the human aspect that deals within aviation. I think, okay, technology it's moving so fast in our current world. So I think from the human aspect, it will be anybody who works within aviation should always develop that interest of learning the new skills, the interest of getting to know the technological changes, apart from also being getting yourself trained about the new technologies that are coming within the aviation industry, because a lot of information gets developed every year. We get to see new systems, new softwares, new components coming up in the market. But I think from a human aspect, it's more of the individual who works within the aviation sector should also try and just do a self-improvement.
Okay.
As an individual, I think that will also help to improve the aviation sector as well.
Well, that is quite amazing, because the way you've said, in aviation, a lot like new content is usually developed. Like they usually review content every now and now. So anyone who is working in the aviation industry, they should be willing and ready to acquire those skills, so that at least they be up to date. And I think that is really amazing recommendation. Well, I know that one, as I've said, anything to do with the aviation, the whole world, the whole Africa, wherever, everywhere, it cannot come to, like, we can't exhaust everything in aviation, because I know it's whole, like, it's an industry on its own. I don't know how I can even put it. Maybe Jose, you can help me put it.
If I understand what you're trying to say correctly, I think the aviation is here to stay. I don't think there is a replacement for aviation. We provide a service that is, unless or until teleporting is invented or something, people will need to be transported from one place to another in a high speed and comfort. That is aviation, cargo, people, whatever. So I think aviation is here to stay. There are lots and lots of things we can do to improve from a technological point of view, from a human point of view. There's so many things to do. I think we want to get people in the industry. We want them to understand what we do, maybe get a passion for it as well, as all of us have.
Yeah.
And just people with a different background coming in, they have fresh ideas. They will make new suggestions. They will bring added value, which I think obviously people are the future. So the fresh minds coming in, new ways of thinking, ability to adapt to new technologies, all of these things, I think that's going to be our future.
Yep, and I agree with you. The fact that trains are still running in our rails, I think aviation is here to stay. Because train was here before aviation, and look at it, aviation is still here. The thing is, in terms of improving, I'll only just go back to what I said previously. In Africa, we still have a lot of opportunities in terms of aviation. That is my main key point that I'll just say at this point. In Africa, a lot and big aviation opportunities.
Maybe if I don't, we are now coming to an end of the conversation, of which I know our viewers have been really enjoying. It has been really rich. Well, maybe if there could be anything you feel you could add on our conversation today.
It's a good aspect that you touched about the risks. It's also a good thing that currently all of us. I was working on a project of which I got to meet most of as well. Also within projects. Projects within aviation also face some risk here and there. But one thing I like about projects within aviation, they can always be viewed like any other project out there. They can always be controlled like any other project out there. The kind of risks that a project manager would face it while building a house or while coming up with let's say a hospital system is a kind of risk that probably we can run into. And the same way of controlling those kind of risks is the same kind of, should I say, ideas that we can borrow from any risk management aspect just to manage risk in aviation. But all in all, aviation is, I think it's a good experience for us who are working in aviation to get to share with the outside world how aviation is and how we try and do our things in here. But I know there is so much with regards to aviation apart from what we just touched on.
Wow. Maybe Jose, if you have something to add?
It's difficult to follow after Frank. I'm trying to think of what else to add. I haven't really got much. No, for sure. From a risk management point of view, the industry is already very good. We can all agree our safety level is very good compared with everybody else. We have, I'm not going to say impeccable, but near impeccable safety record. So let's try and make it a little bit better with all the tools at our disposal, right? If people want to make it better, they will. So we just need to focus on that and keep pushing, bring new people in, bring new ideas, bring new technology, bring everything. And yeah, we're going to be an industry for the 22nd, 23rd century, whatever.
In the 21st century.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that is really, really amazing. So thanks guys for joining us. You've been watching the Oresia TV, the premier online television in East Africa. Make sure you hit the subscribe and follow our conversations that are going to be following in days to come. And for now, I rest my case. With us, I've been with Jose, an engineer. I've been with Frank, who is also an engineer. Jose is a consultant. Frank is also a lead engineer. So, yeah.
I thought the audience forgot about the solution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they have been really really said a lot, and I know many you've enjoyed. So until next time, I wish you subscribe so that next time we follow the conversation.
Exactly. There'll be more to follow.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
All right.